I'm calling this meeting to order. If everybody would pay attention to the rules as we move through this. The rules are let's be careful, okay? I know we're talking about some situations today that are very contentious, but let's keep it as civil as possible, even though what we're talking about in some cases people might feel are very uncivil. We still got to keep it civil here in this room, okay? So with that, may I have a roll call?
Trustee Anson. Here. Trustee Doro. Here. Trustee Meyers.
Here.
Trustee Landwehr.
Here.
Trustee Swenson.
Here.
Trustee Walschlager. Here. President Vanderstill.
Here. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Trustee Myers.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so at this time, we have public comments for items that are not on the agenda, as I did address before the meeting began. Anybody that would want to come up and speak regarding the sex offender that has moved into Hartland, or the petition that's going around, please feel free to step forward. If you can, please try to keep it to 3 minutes is usually the rule just for everybody, but just try to keep it in that ballpark, please.
My name is Bill Knaus. I live up by Four Winds. Just to start, some statistics I had to look up prior to the meeting. Oconomowoc has 15,700 people. They have 34 registered sex offenders. Pewaukee has 13,200 people, 36 registered sex offenders. Delafield, 7,000 people, 4 registered sex offenders. Hartland, roughly 9,100 people, 41 registered sex offenders. So we have a disproportionate share of registered sex deviants. Some are more severe than others, what they've been charged with, and some from even out of state. The latest sex offender has been convicted twice of sexually assaulting children. First instance was on a 12-year-old. Second instance was on an individual that was younger than 13 years old. We all know, based on reports and what's been written, where he currently lives, right behind Walgreens there. Where he lives, it's adjacent, right next to a school bus stop for one of the local public schools. He's directly across from Sendik's and Walgreens, which is frequently traveled by families and kids. He's 1/3 of a mile from Sweet Dreams ice cream shop, which is where my boys bike to on half days or no school days or all summer long with their friends, and I'm sure a lot of other kids in the area bike there. His location is less than 1/2 mile from Hartbrook Park and 1/2 mile from Joliet Park. This can't be right nor acceptable by any standards or what other cities or villages have in place for these sex offenders, especially repeat criminals like this guy. I asked that our board must rewrite our village ordinances to stop the influx of registered sex offenders. I suggest our board maybe contact the Delafield board to get ideas on how to fix the problem. And develop ordinances that become strict enough to keep these people away and do it quickly. One idea is when the current leases are up in these apartments, maybe that's the time to find new living arrangements. They're already there, they're placed. We probably can't touch them now legally, I don't know. But if we can enact some type of new ordinances to keep them away, once their lease is up, they're out. To the bleeding hearts that say, well, where should they go then? I suggest we consult with their victim or victims' families and see where they think they should be relocated. I apologize for the intensity regarding the issue, and I've tried to tone it down as much as possible with those who know me, which is hard to do. But I guess I'm partly embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that for such an educated community, we could be so stupid. 41 registered sex offenders proves that our local laws are insufficient and must be changed, and it has to be done immediately. So, thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you.
I'm going to set my timer and try to stay to 3 minutes for you. Peter Walker. I'm the father of 5. Yes, I'll sign your paper for you. I'm glad you took care of some of my notes because I had some of the similar data for area communities as well too. Peter Walker, father of 5. My oldest is 9. I live in Tenney Avenue in Hartland. Some notables for some of the sex offenders living in Hartland. One's on Hartwood Lane, adjacent to Pembroke Park's. Backyard butts right up to Pembroke Park. 633 Belshire Drive. It's about 250 feet from St. Charles School. 663 Ridgeway Drive is about 400 feet from Hartland South. 231 Maple Avenue, less than 400 feet from Nixon Park, 410 Oxford Drive, 400 feet from Castle Park, 202 Glen Owen Drive, 1/10 of a mile from Zion Lutheran, and 134 Terrace Lane, less than 1,000 feet from Zion Lutheran. Furthermore, on a personal level for you guys, President Vanderstill, you have two of them. You're about 463 feet from Zion. You've got one offender closer and one about 100 feet farther. Trustee Doro, you have one offender less than 500 feet from you, and that's about 1,000 feet from Hartland South. Trustee Swenson, you have one about 1,000 feet from Hartland. You are about 1,000 feet from Hartland South, as the crow flies. One offender lives about 500 feet away between you and the school. He's right across from the school. Trustee Meyers, you've got two both about 1,000 feet from you, and that's about 500. You're about 500 feet from Castle Park. Just putting them about 1,500 feet from Castle Park. And Trustee Landwehr, I already mentioned the guy who's about 250 feet from St. Charles property. So here's the map. Didn't map all 30 plus offenders, but here's the map of all of them living in Hartland. For your records, and I have this to hand out to you guys, I put together some information. It's available online, so this isn't, I just did the research and had some people send me some good information. From the Assistant City Attorney for the City of Milwaukee, Nick Saito, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, citing case law and regulations and how to work properly with appropriately restrictive, and yet that's going to pass the test of constitutional muster. I'll hand this out to you guys as we look at hopefully crafting some ordinances here in Hartland. Lastly, the petition that you mentioned that's been circulating online. It's been online for less than 2.5 days, and in 2.5 days it took off, and over 570 people have signed this petition asking our village board to take action to restrict where sex offenders can live in Hartland. As a young man raising a family, and I've lived in Hartland my entire life, aside from my years at college, I'd ask that you guys do the same, and I wish we would have done this sooner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak regarding this?
Hey, kept it 3 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Christo Trashliev. I live in Four Winds. I'll be even shorter than a minute. I just want to say that about 6 years ago I moved from the city of Milwaukee to Hartland because Hartland offers a lot of things that are very nice and has good reputation. And there's a reason why some of us that didn't grow up here moved to Hartland, and I would like to ask the board to try to keep it that way in regards to this issue. So I'm backing up the people before me and asking that we reconsider this somehow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that wants to speak regarding the sex offender issue or petition? So, if there isn't, I guess I do have some, instead of replying to each one of you as you came up, and other board members that want to say something will be allowed to if they want to. Obviously, this was a shocker, but we are notified, and that's part of the law and things like that. I did make some, I did do some reaching out. I was just as surprised as anybody else when I saw that this person was coming. However, I was extremely limited in what I could do, but I reached out to say, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And there was nothing, there was nothing, there was nothing. We can't do anything about the past, but we can do things for the future. And I guess the best way for me to address it is to say this is the village. This village belongs to the people. This is your village. And though something may not have been drafted or crafted, I like the wording that was used, we can. And we will. I will make absolute, I can guarantee it. You have spoken, we have heard it. I'm embarrassed, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that we were in that position, but we will correct it. And this is how government is supposed to work, that when something's wrong, it gets corrected, and when people speak, the people that represent them listen. So for myself, we'll get it done. And I appreciate everybody caring about the community as much as they do. I know this strikes to the core for each one of us, I think, in some way, shape, or form. So I just wanted to say that it is a very important issue and one that should be taken very seriously. And I have heard you, and I believe that the people up here have, but if anybody else on the board wants to say anything, if they do have any comments before.
Thank you for the information, that is helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was just elected this year. I wasn't aware. I'd like to find out what the process is of getting these people here and who decides where they live, because I've got 7 kids. I've got 4 girls, and I don't want any of them here. So that's where I'm at with this. I'm appalled. And as far as and maybe I'm speaking wrong, and I don't care at this point. As far as their rights, to me, especially the ones that molest children, you don't have any rights, ever.
Anyone else on that issue?
Can I say a quick word, Mr. President? We have a program at the firehouse called Stranger Danger, and we hope that we never have to use it, but I encourage the public. Firehouse is a safe place. The police station is a safe place. Establish safe zones amongst your children if they're walking to school. Stranger Danger program that we offer counteracts strangers, obvious, yell, kick, scream, talk to your kids, talk to each and every one of them, and remind them the dangers that are out there. So, establish a safe place. For now, that's what I can offer from community and things that we do.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
See, I know, I've been around a long time on that, and we've had this problem all the time. And when we tried to do it, unless times have changed, we've been after this for a long time, and we go to the state says you can't do it. Now, why they pick out, I'm surprised that Delafield has 10 less than we do, and why do we have?
Delafield has 4. We have 41.
Delafield's law restricts them within 2,000 feet.
See, now, we were told, and we've looked at this for years, and now this came up again, and I think we've had 30 of them in town for as long as I can remember, off and on. But you couldn't do anything about it. We had talked to people of the state and the congressman, and the state puts them where, now maybe it's changed.
To address that a little bit, there's things that we can do. We don't have something on the books. We have nothing. And so we can become, that might be part of the reason that we're disproportionate, because we don't have anything on the books. Now,
We were told you couldn't do regardless what you wanted to do.
if that's the case, it has changed. There are things we could do, and it is in fact, by the League of Municipalities, suggested that each municipality do something, because there is not a state, there's guidance from departments within the state, but there's not a state, I don't know what the exact word is, but there's not a state statute that says this. They leave that up to the municipalities because they know what affects us the most. And that's where, again, I'm just going to try to stress, yes, we can do something, but we are going to address it. My biggest thing is that the people know that, I mean, we care too.
Is this
us
something
as a
we have
board.
to have a meeting with our attorney and get moving on?
Oh, our attorney, I have called our attorney.
Okay,
And
all right.
it is already in the works.
All right, just wanted to make sure.
Or he's pulling data. He's pulling the
all right.
forms. I've talked with the administrator. Obviously, we're very limited in coming out and saying things to, we don't want to create chaos or misspeak either. But we're doing our best to take care of it, and it is already in the works. We heard you before even tonight. So it's, at this, there will be more forthcoming. Keep your eyes on the agendas that come up, because you will be able to
The thing that really
see that.
bothers me is that it's like 41 people aren't from Hartland. You know, I mean, why do we get garbage dumped on us from these other communities? It irritates me. I've had that discussion with the police department over the years, and I'll tell you, our guys in the police department are pretty vigilant about following up. I mean, they're talking to these people. They know where they are. I'm not sure what the schedule is now, but I'm concerned, very concerned with this thing, and we've got to change that. But I think our police have gone out of their way also, and it's taken us a lot of revenue for them to go through the community and to follow up on, hey, where are you doing? You know, and we've got different things, but we can't ask our police department, you know, to plug the holes in the dam, but we got only so many thumbs when that thing's leaking. But 41 people, my gosh. Now, if they were all from Hartland, I could say, okay, we got a couple barns out and back, we could probably take care of them. But, you know, it's something, it's irritating, but I have to take my hats off to the police department. I mean, we've been throwing a sour apple, and they're doing a good job trying to control it. And but I do think that this board's going to take a very active position and maybe do some bottom kicking or something.
Just to follow on my other point, there's a way to even go after the property owners that take the subsidies to house these people. Go that direction, or call even Balistraries and everybody in that whole strip mall, let them know where their business is and who's, you know, taking these people, you know, and the residencies right behind them. That's a quick way to go at it.
Over the years, we've had some problems with collecting of bills, or electric companies, different companies collecting bills from apartment dwellers, and they tried to go after the owner of the building, and the state turned them down. You know, I mean, that's a great idea. And I think if, you know, if you have a house, if you have a corral, you want the certain horses in there, get rid of the other ones, you know?
So these people aren't even working, their housing is subsidized?
Right.
So we're paying for them to live here?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if it's all 41, but you can be rest assured it's about the amount.
Good evening. I'm Interim Chief Ross Kalura, and this is Officer Robert Jewell. He's our liaison officer. He deals primarily with the sex offenders in the village here. I heard some questions here and heard some things, and I'm glad all of you decided to come out today and show us, you know, how important this topic is to all of you. It's equally as important to the police department. We deal specifically with the Department of Corrections when sex offenders get released. When offenders are on supervision, they are required to come to the police department and do a face-to-face interview. Officer Robert Jewell does most of those. If he's not on, other people deal with it. We have a set of guidelines that we deal with at the police department for these offenders. I heard a lot of talk about ordinances and state statutes and things like that. There is talk among the professional communities in the police field itself that some of these ordinances might not stand up to scrutiny if someone would go to court. Now, I know that there's been the League of Municipalities and others that guide some of these things. I would be very excited for the village to go to the municipal attorneys and see if they can develop an ordinance that would deal with the specific situation that we're dealing with. But as far as the police are concerned, we deal with the Department of Corrections. They know all the state statutes that govern the release of the sex offenders. We meet with them specifically with a core meeting when one is going to be released into the community. And we are extremely vigilant in making contact with them, supplying any additional information or needs that the Department of Correction asks for. When compared to other communities, like these gentlemen had said, you know, 4 in Delafield, 41 in Hartland. There's also a group that work in Hartland that we know about. We're dealing with the set of circumstances and the laws that are on the books at the time. I'm glad to see that the community is concerned. The reason that we decided to do the special notification like we did is because I don't want there to be people out there who don't know. If it's a surprise for all of you folks now and you've been living here for a certain amount of time, that means that the notice wasn't done to the point where everybody's getting the information. So as far as I'm concerned, we want to be upfront and forthright. That's why it was done the way it was this time. I never want people to say, I had no idea, it was a shock to me, I can't believe this. You know, if you're living in a community for all these years and these things aren't known to you, There's things that maybe I, as the police chief now, can do to help you get the information out there. The only thing that I urge the community to do is read the bulletins that we set out, respect the fact that people have rights and that you don't want to get yourself in trouble by doing something hastily. It's something that the community has to deal with together. The village board is extremely proactive. Our police department is extremely proactive. This is something that's now come to light, and now as a group, we're going to deal with it. Whether that means enacting an ordinance or handling it otherwise. You know, I had our clerical staff do some research this afternoon when I learned that the petition was going through the village, and we've got a list of maybe 6 to 8 different ordinances now that we can go through, see what's good, what's bad, what's going to stand up, what's not going to. I mean, this is a process that's going to take a while. I know everybody would like it to be immediate. Unfortunately, in law, nothing's immediate. So just be extremely cautious with the things that you do, you know, in the community here. We're here as the police department. Please don't take anything into your own hands. If you have questions, if you have concerns, you can call us 24 hours a day. We will give you extremely good advice for the information that you're asking for, or if we don't have the information, we will do research. As a police force, we can't possibly know the answer to all your questions. And if you ask me personally, I would say either I do know or I don't know, and if I don't, I'll give you a time frame at what I'll get back to you. But it's nice to see that the board is taking you know, this extremely seriously. The police department would love to do whatever we can to make the community a safer place. So we work together. We'll get whatever we can done within the confines of the law. But I just want to stress enough that we're here to do the police work. Please call us with questions, concerns, anything like that. You know, the only thing that makes change is people who notify us that there's a problem, and we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
It seems apparent, I wasn't aware of the disproportionate number versus the population, and it occurs to me that perhaps, I don't know what the attorney's going to say, I'm not a attorney myself, but maybe by not having restrictive legislation that tries to keep them away from certain things, maybe we've become too easy for some bureaucrat in Madison to say, oh, we'll dump them in Hartland. Maybe we ought to make a bunch of hoops. Now, it isn't getting at perhaps what we'd like to do is say, get them out of town. But maybe it'll just become too difficult and too much work for some Madison bureaucrat to dump them here. And maybe that's what we did wrong. We just didn't make it difficult for that bureaucrat.
Well, you know, past boards, and I don't want to say that the boards, past boards that didn't do anything on it, we worked on this thing for years, and that's what we ran into. Now, I hope something pops out, but every time we've had this, now I knew that we had 25 or 30 of them in there for, I don't know how many years. And that's what we did, and past boards and everything else tried to stop this, putting them in here. And we were always told the state handles that, you gotta go there. So everybody we talked to up at the state, off and on, certain people, we never got any farther, but we never had this surplus. I mean, we always had between 20 and 30 people in town that probably nobody knew about, unless you had it on a computer, and there's certain people in town that you can pick that all up on the computer. They'll turn around and stop me on the street and say, you know, we got 25, you got one working over here and one working there, and they can pick that up. But I mean, I don't want to say that past board hasn't been aware of this or trying to do something with it. And I hope this new board can handle this differently.
Thank you, everyone who spoke, and we are listening. We'll get it done. The next group does anybody have any public comments on rec department? I believe there's some here. If somebody wants to speak to that, we got an email saying people would speak.
Good evening. My name is Jen Legend, and I've been the camp coordinator for the Hartland summer programs for, I believe, about 7 years. And I'm here on behalf of the summer program staff, advocating for them after taking into consideration the comments that were addressed on their evaluations. So I've built the summer program up from having about 6 kids when I first started, and about 2 staff, to currently about 75 kids, maxing out with a waiting list approximately every week, with currently approximately 13 staff. The program has grown tremendously over the years. I've also helped create the Little Tykes program, which was, I believe, 3 to 4 year olds, which eventually progressed and led into what is now known as the Tiny Tots program, which is currently 5 to 6 year olds. The summer camp program, the current age is 6 to 12 year olds. I've also helped generate the spring break camp, bringing about to the village, seeing that with the rapport that I have developed with families within the community, a lot of families need places for their kids to go during those off school times, and so Hartland now offers a spring break camp. People that utilize the programs in summer and spring break don't necessarily live in Hartland. They also come from the surrounding communities to utilize our services. So before coming here, we've tried to address concerns with administration, but there is no sense of urgency when attempting to solve these problems. There are many issues that are being looked over, and it's causing a lot of problems within the department and our program. There has also been a great deal of miscommunications or no communication at all, which also creates many issues for the program and the department. It concerns me when I've held this position for many years, and it's very disheartening to me to have to read through evaluations and to see the valued staff that we have that have either A, decided to no longer return, or B, possibly not return in the near future, which could be detrimental to the overall program, which once again has been built pretty solidly with waiting lists pretty much every week, except for the 4th of July. Families take holiday breaks during that time. Although not all of us are here in front of you as the staff, I can assure you that there needs to be some change within the department. If you would like to hear any other further comments or anything addressing this issue, feel free to contact myself or any other member of the summer programming. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Sure.
And the same thing goes that you also can contact each one of us also if need be. Jen, just saying, or if any board member wants to contact you, you're saying? Sure. Is that what you said? Okay, next we have, thank you. Next we have construction projects going on in, near, or around Mary Hill subdivision.
Well, hello. I'm Dino Zikis. I live at 605 Southern Oak Drive, and I'm pretty sure you all remember my emails and my exchange of emails with Mr. Cox. I'm really in pain having to address this with you. You're elected officials, some of you are appointed, and you're elected to execute the will of the people. Use and spend their money, the taxpayers' money, wisely. That's not what I have seen on this project. And I've seen other ones, but this one, since it affected me and all our neighbors directly, I had to come and speak out. Mr. Cox sent a letter on July 27th saying that the road would be closed. There will be construction starting on or about August 1st, with a completion date, as his words were, may last up to August 10th. Well, at the night of August 10th, on August 10th, my wife wrote an email to the Director of Public Works. She also tried to call him 3 times. Got no response. I told her to relax and give the process some time to work. 4 days later, I had it after destroying tires on my vehicle and every neighbor being frustrated. I wrote to you and Mr. Cox, and I got an answer the day after. Mr. Cox on that letter wrote that the project may be finished by Saturday, 3 days later. That was on a Thursday, or most likely Monday, and put in parentheses that that was his opinion. Well, Monday came about. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, nothing takes place. So on Wednesday night, I rewrote you after more damage was done, and I have pictures for all of you, before and after. The curbs at Mary Hill entry on Greystone and Southern Oak, or even by Lisbon Road there by Kay, were not damaged before to that level from the snow plow. A lot of the damage took place with these contractors you hired, who, by the way, Mr. Cox told me that he's assembling the documents that I requested. As a taxpayer and as a resident here, and based on the Freedom of Information Act, I would like copies of your bidding process and the contracts. How did you award that contract to that contractor? And a contract, for some of you that, or some of us that work on the private sector, have a start date and an end date. They don't have an open, indefinite date. Mr. Cox wrote on his first letter that it will be finished maybe or may last up to August 10th. And after repeated exchange of emails, and I don't want to repeat myself because you have read them all, he finally sent me an email saying that a bunch of projects together are lumped to finish on August 31st, and we have another 4 weeks after that. Why couldn't you write that on the beginning? When the project doesn't get done, based on the schedule that you communicated to all the residents, why don't you take the time to communicate why it's late? I think it's a total waste of taxpayers' money. I don't know if any one of you took a drive or drove there. I thought I saw the president there one day, but nobody else. I have tons of pictures. Okay, so I don't need to repeat myself. Just so you're aware, as I was coming here tonight, I took pictures of all the cans of pop and plastic bottles that the construction workers of that group you hired has dumped it on the edge. Forget about all the damage they've done to the common area sprinkler system and to some of the residents. I've been living in Hartland for 12 years, and that was my choice and the choice of my family. And I've been on the architectural board of Mary Hill and a very active member of the Homeowners Association. For some of you that don't know, I live in Hartland, but I commute 110 miles each way to my work. So that's how much I like Hartland. But it pains me to see the taxpayers' money being wasted in that way. And one more point. Mr. Cox responded to this, but I still don't know. The contractors, the last time they did work there, before they put the overlay, did damage 6 curbs. They marked them with paint and a spray. And by the way, they threw the spray in at the corner inside a little wedge, and I took it out with one of the neighbors and put it there so they can take it. But these curbs were not replaced. Fine. We do need to know when it's going to finish. And most importantly, as my time comes up, why would this project even take place? Who awarded it? Who decided? And under what reasons? I would like to know if you have any statements from anyone, any letters, any phone call, any records. The Freedom of Information Act requires that you provided this to us. And I just assure you, this matter is not going to go away. I'm paying an enormous amount of taxes, and I'll gladly pay that and much more. But I want the money to be used wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look into those documents and getting them to you.
I have them assembled, I just haven't, I got them today.
Okay.
I just haven't gotten to him.
And I'm sorry that that project took so long up there.
At least if you could find out why the project took place.
Yes, I will get,
On a perfectly
But I
fine.
don't know. I'm just guessing.
I will get that information. Thank you. If there are any other public comments for items that are not on the agenda, I don't know if anybody's here to speak to those. Or any items. They are not. So with that, thank you to everybody that came and spoke. Please feel free to come as often as you'd like to these meetings. That's what they're for. We have a presentation. Our first item is a presentation by Swallow School officials related to the November 6, 2018 referendum.
First. Oh boy.
Well, here, can I pass these out? Can I get these? They would have that already. I can't see from there where the mouse is. There we go. Okay. All right, sorry, I couldn't see that little thing. You sure? Yeah. Either way. Do you want to? We can offer if anybody's not this would like this as well. Oh yeah. So these are the surveys. So I'm not sure that they want the survey necessarily.
The survey was on the back.
Right.
Okay.
But the board members all have this. Okay. Yeah. So do you want to do this or do you want to
We got it on our agenda.
Of course, I haven't got my computer here.
The 2 4 wins in Maryhill and some Bristol.
I wonder what this Swisher.
Well, good evening. If you're ready for us, I think we're ready for you.
We're ready.
Wonderful. Well, good evening. My name is Melissa Thompson, and I am the superintendent over at Swallow School. Thank you very much for agreeing to have us this evening.
And I am Peg Modi, and I'm a school board member.
Right. Well, as you've surmised from both what's on the agenda as well as what we have placed in your packets in front of you, we are here to tell you a little bit about a referendum that the school board has placed on the November ballot, and want to just take an opportunity to, relatively quickly get through some information, play a short video for you that just explains why are we here. Obviously, we have quite a large portion of Village of Hartland is actually within our school district. Many of the newer subdivisions that have gone in over the last 15 years, and so we know that you as elected officials, as well as other people who may be listening or watching or here present tonight, may have some questions that we'd like to just be sure we can answer. So without further ado, we'll get started. So leading up to the school board's decision at the end of July to place this referendum on the ballot, there was a lot of work done, and I think some of the most important things are highlighted for you up on the screen. But one of the things that we kicked off with is we hired the board a few years ago, 5 years ago, conducted a request for proposal process and hired an architectural firm to come in and do what's called a facilities study. So this is our 175th year. None of the building we have in place right now is actually original to the property. That is something that I know a lot of citizens have had questions about and asked us. But in fact, the oldest portion of our building is in fact the third building. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we did a facility study and just tried to really understand the entire, from top to bottom, inside and out, how was the state of our building and grounds? What were things up and coming? What was needed? We used that information to craft a 20-year long-term capital improvement plan. Some other things that we've done along the way is every other year we hold what's called a community conversation series. And this is where the school board and I team up with our community and people in each of the different subdivisions, as well as just out in the community in general, host school board members and myself to come into homes and answer questions about how are we doing with curriculum, services, what could the building be, maybe do differently to support the things we're looking forward to. And so that has happened 3 times in the last 4 years. And then knowing where we were with some debt coming off, which we'll talk about in a moment, as well as the needs that we know we have as a building and grounds, we formed the school board commissioned facilities advisory committee. And that was a cross-section of parents, residents, that met over the course of this past school year to help look at everything and say, this is where we are. We met with teachers, we met with other staff who could come and lend insights, as well as construction company and architectural firm, to really try to say, okay, where are we with things and where do we need to go next?
Can I jump in here?
Please do.
And to say residents, we did a full cross-section of the community. We had retirees, we had people that have, little kids in the district, everyone in between. We made sure to get people they have young kids and they don't go to Swallow. I mean, we truly got a cross-section. We looked at builders. We talked to people in the community who were architects, architectural engineers, just environmentalists. I mean, we truly did a cross-section of a community, and we started meeting in October, and we met at least once, sometimes twice a month, and we went all the way until May. We did a deep dive into what is Swallow for the students, the teachers, the residents, the community, and how can this building be used by everybody in this universe.
Right. And so with all that information, a survey was put out to residents. The results of the survey were favorable for a $9.98 million referendum. However, when the board kind of looked at the feedback and looked at comments and things, the $9.98 million referendum would have resulted in a tax increase. And so the board decided to go for 8.3 instead, which is not a tax increase. And so that is where we are today. And of course, it's on the ballot for a vote coming up. So the goals of the project really align to the district's values. First and foremost, we're about placing our students first. And I think the biggest piece to keep in mind with this placing the students first is that comes down to not just what are the buildings and structures. I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar, I've been to your meetings before. There's a lot that goes on these days in the workforce, right? We all talk about the skills gap and the skills deficiency and things, especially having to do with engineering and science and math. Well, those are not our only areas of emphasis at our school by a long stretch. However, we have gotten farther down into offering that all the way down to 4K. We offer engineering at this point. And I'll tell you what, any of you have Legos in your own house that you're tripping over and stepping on or ever seen those? They take up a lot more space than when kids just used to sit in desks and rows and open up a textbook. So I think one of the pieces for us is, while trying to offer a world-class experience for the students, it's not just about how many kids you have, it's about what are you trying to do and how much space do you need in which to really do that appropriately. And so we really are serious about personalizing the learning experience for each child and making sure that we are able to put resources towards that and not have resources diminish that have to go to roof and gutters and leaky basements from 1894, but rather towards the kids. And similarly, along with that, it's really all about continuous improvement. It's not just about the continuous improvement of the building and grounds, although there is a lot of that needs to happen. It is also very much taking in mind, like Peggy was saying, we have studied this. We have talked to not just, nationally known experts in terms of education, what's next in education, but more importantly, we've talked to our students, our alumni, our families who are with us now, and business people, and really heard what do we need to do to continuously improve for the sake of our children. And that also feeds into community engagement. We have some of the very oldest wings of our building. After the first two burned down on what's now the Filters Farm, you can actually see the footprints of the original buildings. A third one was erected, and that's actually the corner of our building that a lot of people drive by and think, oh gee, that must be the original building. That is from 1894, and the basement is completely failing. It's a field-sown basement. Somebody used an analogy earlier this evening about plugging holes, you run out of thumbs and dams and all that stuff, and that's kind of the spot we're at. And then attached to that is the 1953 wing. We are not ADA accessible. You'll see a little bit more about that shortly in our video, but that is a challenge for our building because we do not truly have full engagement of our community. We have to move classrooms around when we have students who break legs or when we have children with disabilities who might not be in a position to actually go up and down stairs.
Last component is fiscal responsibility. I think when we come to the community, we also need to be prepared as a board to say, we have looked at our budget and we have tightened it. Back in 2004. We restructured the debt, saved over $300,000. And as we move forward, the board, just this last year, we are continually looking at our healthcare costs. We changed healthcare providers yet again. We are saving tens of thousands of dollars every single year by continually looking at this and being responsible to what money we are given, and, you know, and obviously to the taxpayers. It's one of my big issues. Melissa gets tired of listening to me here.
Well, but the good news is by doing that, we're able to funnel it back into the kids. So we have a very short video we'd like to show you now that kind of gives you a high-level overview of the state of the building and what we're hoping we can accomplish. Sorry. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Good job.
So while she's getting the slide up, I will just start talking. You know, why now? Water infiltration, asbestos, system failures, they all require renovations. I think one of the primary concerns you have to have when you are dealing with students, it has to be the safety of the students going into the building. As a parent of a student at Swallow, I get it. You know, I hear the stories of asbestos and they say, well, it's contained. Well, when you have a failure in a tile in an art room and the tile comes up, the asbestos is exposed. It's an issue that our students and our staff can be exposed to this. One of the things we were, you know, watching the news last week in Madison and watching the areas, you know, between 9 and 13 inches of water. That literally, I mean, it makes you so nervous that if that could happen here, you know, we have aging. We have a lot of aging that is going on in the building. You get 13 inches of water in our building, and now we're looking at serious issues, especially with the start of school coming. Improvements are obviously needed to make it ADA compliant. I don't think you need to have a special needs child to know that this is just something you do as a part of being in a community like Hartland. You make your buildings ADA accessible. I just think it is who we are as a community. And then we have done a lot of safety and security updates. But like you're all aware and you watch the news, we are continually spending money and putting money into that to maintain as perfect as an environment as possible. And then the last is the zero tax increase due to the early debt repayment and projected decrease in the mill rate. And so that's how we can say that there will be, no tax increase. Doesn't mean there's not an impact, but no tax increase. There's a, slight delineation there.
Right. One of the questions we've been getting a lot, so I'll just say it up front, kind of piggybacking on what Peggy was mentioning. The current amount is $72 per 100,000 for the debt that will be falling off. So if the referendum were not to pass, then that amount, $72 per 100,000, would in fact go back to the taxpayer, because you would no longer be paying a debt portion if the referendum did not pass. But that's where that money's getting made up. And like she said, we, all said and done, have avoided about $350,000 worth of interest rates by paying it, by refinancing in 2012 and then actually paying it down early. So that's definitely something that the school board has taken great pride in making sure happens. So the last couple things here to just make sure you're seeing are really what the main part of the project does is it takes down that 1953 through 1894 building. It does take those down. There are various things, and I know you guys also have these sheets up here. You see a red dotted line. That is the right of way. Like, we cannot go any closer on this side of the building. So there's a dotted line on the inside, and that's the part that is the existing wing. The reason why it would be widened just slightly is because right now it's a classroom width and not even a real full classroom width. It's got pillars holding up classrooms, and just the design of it was not something that's really conducive to classrooms today. And so because it's that plus a hallway, the renovated space would allow for right-sized classrooms this day and age, and to be able to have a full stretch of those as well as lockers or collaboration space. So that's why that's a little bit wider. All told, it's about a 4,000 square foot difference in total to the building, but that would be the rationale for why that's happening. Another question we've gotten is, well, why can't you just renovate or put a lift in? And what you wouldn't necessarily know unless you've gotten a tour of our building is that all of the major mechanicals were put right here where these steps are that you saw the wheelchair, because they assumed that'd be the termination of the building in 1953 when this part was added. And so it's not just that simple, and so that's why through dozens of engineers and contractors and people, they've gotten us to this point of you really can't just make it ADA accessible in that wing without a significant price tag. We have gotten estimates, and it would cost between 1.5 and 2 million to renovate the existing wing, which is a big part of why we're looking at just total replacement. So you've already, I guess the last couple pieces to mention here, currently our music rooms are right in the center of our building. On the video you probably saw our middle school choir students who are about this far from the ceiling when they're on the risers. And so part of the goal of the project, again, it's mainly to take care of this wing, but also to update and just repurpose a few of the classrooms that we have. We've talked about the expected outcomes, and I think the last piece is really just the tax impact. And as we've said, that's it. Debt will be falling off, and the board has voted to go to referendum to hopefully capture that amount of money so that it can be repurposed into these projects we know we have at the present time. We have 2 upcoming open houses, and so certainly we're happy to entertain any questions you have now, but for you or anybody else who's watching or listening, we do have open houses which will include tours as well as further Q&A for our presentation. Any questions we can answer for you?
No questions?
I don't necessarily have a question, but I do want to say one thing, because there are 2 different school districts for Hartland. That all of
Yes.
Hartland, this is most important for people that would be in the Swallow School District. For
Correct.
those of you that are in the other, actually there's 3. 1.
4.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
There's 4. So, but this really affects the people that are in the Swallow School District a lot, and those are the only people who their ballots it would be on. So
That is correct.
but,
Yep.
so for them, you can call, I'm sure, Swallow School also, and ask about the open houses, or if they needed some special time or wanted to talk to someone, they could do that as well.
Absolutely. we would be happy to work with them.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time. We do truly appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, once they are disassembled, we have a few things that we'll be doing with the fire department. We have, the next item is a recognition of Hartland Fire Department retirees.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll be recognizing 6 retirees this evening. Unfortunately, we have a major drill going on right now, so our fire department is out attending the drill. They wanted to be included and are sorry they can't be here, but they're all out practicing at a house that we have to practice in, which doesn't come along very often. And out of the 6 retirees that we have over 75 years of experience that we will be losing. And the people that could not be here tonight, Laura Kelscher, who moved out of state, served 11 years on our fire department and will be mailed her certificate. Caitlin Sontag served 3 years for us. Alec Marquette, 3 years of service. Tammy Cool, 16 years of service. And Lieutenant Russ Cool, 16 years of dedicated service. So of the 6, we have 1 tonight that was able to venture back to the village of Hartland. I'd like to introduce Shoneen Martinez. Come on up, Shoneen. Shoneen was an inspiration to our fire department in many ways, and I'll try to sum it up a little bit here. Shoneen had 9 years of dedicated service, and throughout this service, you have selfishly protected Hartland and its citizens, as well as helped to develop future generations of emergency responders. Key roles, great mentor, great inspiration to many and all. And the Hartland Fire Department and Village of Hartland are deeply grateful for the skills, knowledge, and hard work that you have shared. And we will forever be grateful, and we will miss your dedicated service and your smiling face and your willingness to help and go the extra mile. And for that, we will definitely miss each and every aspect of the time you've given to the Village of Hartland and the fire department. With that, we present you with this plaque and a nice little memento with your back tag and some items on it. And we have some cake for afterwards. And there's cake. And there's cake, yes.
Thanks for incentivizing them to finish.
Yes. So with that, I'll close out. But I can't say enough about Shoneen and the dedication that we have in our members in our department, and it will be greatly missed. Thanks, Shoneen.
Thank you very much for your service. Next item on the agenda is a consideration of a motion to approve the village board minutes of the August 13th meeting.
I so move.
I'll second
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of a motion to approve the vouchers for payments.
I assume we pay the bills. My computer just quit
I
at
gotcha.
197. I
In
wanna
the
go home.
amount 197, 572.66.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the bills for 197, 572.66.
I think the village didn't pay the tax bill or something like
The power bill.
Any discussion on the vouchers? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on the agenda, we have consideration of actions related to licenses and permits. We have consideration of the operators, bartenders licenses for Catherine Melitik, Jocelyn Nichols, Cami Kuselik, and Natalie Haas.
Also,
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bartenders, operators licenses for the people as it was stated. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried for all 4 of those people. The next, we have a temporary Class B beer/wine license. The applicant is Waukesha County Land Conservancy. The location is Cottonwood Wayside Pavilion. The event is Picnic on the Preserve. The date is September 15th, 2018, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is a beer/wine, Class B beer/wine license, temporary.
I move the temporary license be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that license. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Along with that, I believe that this is for the same event. We have the temporary operator's license for Cheryl White at that event.
I move we approve Cheryl White's license.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that temporary operator's license. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the agenda, we have consideration of a motion to approve resolution number 827, 2018, a resolution pledging that the village board of the Village of Hartland will expend funds necessary for the Hartland Public Library to exempt the village from the Waukesha County Library levy. This is something we do every single year, but there may be questions.
I make a motion we approve the library funding.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. In case there are people watching, can you give a quick review of just why we do this? Because we own our library. We have a library here, but if you can.
Sure. So, correct. Because the Village of Hartland chooses to operate its own library, we have to take the step to exempt our residents from the tax that is levied by the county for library services. If we don't, then they would, of course, be double taxed. And the whole point of this is that the county requires us to levy at least as much as the county, how do I say this quickly? At least as much as the county would have based on last year's expenditures, applying it to this year's value. The Village of Hartland has always adopted this motion, or adopted this resolution, but I would also add has generally decided to allocate more funds to the library than the minimum required. The library is also funded by payments that we get from the county that come from county taxes for residents who use our library but don't live in the village. And we also get paid by other counties for, again, their residents that use our library. So about a third of our funding comes from everywhere else, and the balance comes from the Hartland taxpayers.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt this again this year. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the agenda, we have an update and potential discussion related to the preparation of the 2019 budget.
I just wanted to take just a quick moment and just advise you that we're moving through the budget at the staff level. Staff and I have been through the entire budget once at this point, and we're going now back through all of it again to make sure that all of the pieces are together and that we're being as efficient as we can be. There are some areas of the budget, at least as it's drafted today, that we are experiencing some reductions in cost. There are other areas that certainly we have some increases in cost based on history and other factors. Right now we're waiting on some fairly critical information from other entities, the state and others, with some critical figures related to health insurance and how much that changes. As a reminder, the village is part of the state health insurance plan. So we're waiting for that information that will probably come hopefully later in September. And we're also waiting on the final details on all of the aids and revenues that we get from the state and the way that they're changing that around. For example, with respect to personal property tax, you'll all remember that change comes in this year. So it's moving along. It's in pretty good shape right now. I think that staff has done yeoman's work and will be prepared to start distributing that to the village board in the first part of September in advance of your meetings, which are scheduled for the 19th and 20th in this room.
Okay. All right, so with that, any other board discussion?
See, that first meeting you're breaking down, that's the 19th.
I thought on the 18th.
What?
should be Wednesday, Thursday, right?
Oh, I
Wednesday,
have
Thursday,
Tuesday
right?
and Wednesday.
Wednesday, Thursday, and it's 18th,
Did I-
19th, this is- no,
Did I
thought
say 18th? I
Huh?
apologize. It's Wednesday, Thursday of that week, if I
Okay.
said something different than that.
September 19th and 20th.
That's okay.
Yeah, there was a conflict on Tuesday with Delhart.
Correct. So, and we used to do this all in one day, but after 4 hours, you guys, everyone kind of lost focus about all the other budgets. We're going to do it over 2 days. Well, you know, when you're talking for 4.5 hours
So
about
that's
budgets.
your first public forum.
19th.
We'll be distributing beforehand, and that will involve probably some face-to-face conversations just to help you sort of see the highlights and get through some of it, and then you'll have, we're anticipating about a week before the meetings for you to have it at your home and nestle with it on your couch.
Those meetings on the 19th and 20th are open to the public.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
I need a motion.
We need a motion for the dates? Oh, I
No,
thought
that's
someone
already
just
set.
said-
You
That's what I
said it
thought.
was-
That's what I was gonna say. So, but there's no one else on the board. We don't have any discussion on that. We'll be taking that up at that open meeting, unless someone has nothing. Okay, with that, we have announcements. Palmer's 10th event was yesterday. They raised, I don't know how much they raised, but they did a lot for cystic fibrosis. It was fantastic. There's a lot going on in the village. Obviously, this last week, it was rough. Being an elected official, it was rough. We're addressing it. We hear you. That's all I can say. I'll continue to say it. It's what you deserve, and it's what we work to make happen. So I hope everybody everything will keep on working just fine, and we'll take care of these things as they come up. When something isn't right, we'll address it. And that's what we're going to do. So, but not too many, I don't have any other announcements.
Mr. President, I have one. Dave Dean, Fire Chief. Just want to give you an update on Jack Sullivan's Eagle Scout project in Centennial Park. We worked on it this weekend. Trustee Anson, President Vanderstill, Rich Winkleman, over 20 hours of work this weekend went into the project, and the expertise that Trustee Anson and Rich Winkleman from Concrete and Brick Specialists showed to these young men, about 10 scouts that were there. They should be teachers, because they were very patient, calm, and showed these kids the architect work and the hands-on work that they formed as concrete slab. I mean, it's just beautiful. 11 by 7, 12 inches deep. It's turned out great. Was seeded and dirt put around it yesterday, so that now the top portion of the pavilion will start. But just a quick update on that. It was great. Good community work, and everybody really enjoyed it.
It was
Thanks
cool
for
to
coming
see
out.
that all coming to be, because it took him, he ran into some speed bumps.
Right.
And it all ended up
And he
working
said a
out,
lot
though,
of-
that he was able to get the people to help him out, whether it be people going out to help him build it, or lay that, like he's laying that slab, but also getting people to donate materials, time, so he worked really hard at getting there. It was
Absolutely.
neat
It's
to
going to be a
see,
beautiful
so.
finished product,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hard-working group
It'll
of
be good
kids.
for the park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Well then,
I'll make a motion, we adjourn for cake.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn and then have cake. All in favor? Aye.
Sounds like a
This
winner.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming. Thank you for speaking. Thank you, everyone.